Chapter 123. Your Highness, it's better for you to make more practical requests. Chu Luiyue held onto the scabbard and used a little force, wanting to push him away. Rong Xiao knitted his brows slightly, but he didn't move back. Instead, he moved forward another inch. The two of them were already very close to each other, so they could smell each other's breaths. He openly displayed everything about himself in front of her as if he didn't care about anything else. Chu Luiyue's figure was reflected in his deep eyes. Chu Luiyue was dazed for a moment. It was as if, even if she was holding a sharp blade in her hands, he would still come over without a care. Her daze caused her actions to be delayed for a moment. A dim light flashed across Rong Jin's eyes, and his thin lips gently curved up into an ambiguous arc. A faint sigh landed in Chu Luiyue's ears. How fierce. In the quiet and dark night, this sigh was like the spring wind that messed up the strings of a zither. It left an echo in Chu Luiyue's heart and didn't go away for a long time. Her heart couldn't help but beat violently as if something cunning had torn a hole in the stiff and cold wall in her heart and crawled in. She almost instinctively took a step back and avoided Rong Xiao's eyes. Your Highness, with your distinguished status, countless gentle and virtuous women will go to you as long as you wave your hand. I Chu Luiyue am fierce, ruthless and cold-hearted. Your Highness, why are you wasting your time on me? Rong Xiao looked at her and something seemed to be moving in his eyes. Finally, it turned into a light smile. But I can't see them. I only see you. What can I do? Chu Luiyue's heart tingled and she couldn't help but look at him. The cold moonlight flowed in and Rong Xiao's face was half lit and half dark. His brows were slightly knitted as if he was very troubled. However, there was a hint of indulgence in his eyes and brows. Chu Luiyue didn't know how to respond to such a straightforward confession of love. The two of them quieted down, leaving only an ambiguous atmosphere brewing between them. It was as if even the wind at the end of summer had become gentle. Chu Luiyue had heard of confessions before. In her previous life, her status was noble, her strength was extraordinary, and there was no need to talk about her appearance. She had attracted the admiration of many young men. Logically speaking, she shouldn't feel anything if she were to encounter such a scene again. But Rong Xiao's words seemed to have an inexplicable power, which could always easily stir up her mood. Chu Luiyue lowered his eyes. Not to mention that Rong Xiao had saved her several times, just the peach blossom hairpin on Rong Xiao's birthday and the exquisite dagger today showed that he had put in a lot of effort. If it were any other woman, they would be moved by what he had done for her. It would be a lie to say that she didn't feel anything. But she had experienced the most unforgettable betrayal in the world. Now she couldn't easily give all her trust. Faced with Rong Xiao's kindness, her first reaction was not to accept it happily, but to escape. When Rong Xiao approached her, there was a faint trace of fear in her heart. That fear came from the unforgettable pain in the depths of her memory, and she couldn't tell Rong Xiao about this. Moreover, after her rebirth, the most important thing for her was revenge. If she was too close to Rong Xiao, he would definitely be implicated. This was also unfair to Rong Xiao. Countless thoughts flashed through her mind. In just a moment, Chu Luiyue looked up at Rong Xiao again. Her expression was calm, her eyes were clear, and the corners of her mouth curved. Your Highness really knows how to joke. Her cold voice shattered the originally ambiguous atmosphere. Rong Xiao stared at her. Both of them were smart people. There were some words that didn't need to be said. They already understood each other's meaning. Chu Luiyue waited for Rong Xiao to turn and leave. Any man who had done so much for a woman but was still rejected should not continue, right? Moreover, Rong Xiao was of noble status. However, unexpectedly, Rong Xiao didn't look angry or embarrassed at all, as if he didn't care about Chu Luiyue's words. Then he reached out and grasped the scabbard in front of his chest. Just tell me, do you like this gift? Chu Luiyue was stunned. But seeing Rong Xiao's insistence, she could only nod. Your Highness' gift is always good. It's good that you like it. Rong Xiao chuckled, then suddenly reached out and pinched her cheek. When I made this, I put in a lot of effort. Today you have to accompany me to rest as a token of your gratitude. Chu Luiyue was shocked. This you made it yourself? Because she was too surprised, she didn't have time to complain about Rong Xiao pinching her cheek. Seeing the girl in front of him in a daze, Rong Xiao's mood finally improved. He turned and walked upstairs. I'm very tired today. I'll tell you tomorrow. Chu Luiyue sneered in her heart. Why would he talk about this tomorrow? Your Highness, if you're willing to talk about it tomorrow, I'm afraid I won't have the chance to listen. Rong Xiao stopped and looked back at her. Chu Luiyue also walked forward. When she reached him, she paused and raised her chin slightly. The academy will set off for Wanling Mountain tomorrow. We have to leave early in the morning. So, you'd better tell it to yourself. After saying that, Chu Luiyue didn't look at Rong Xiu's expression. She went upstairs, entered her room and directly locked the door. Rong Xiu only reacted when he heard the sound of the door being locked. He looked at the tightly shut door and raised his eyebrows. After a moment he couldn't help but laugh. She was really as calculative as always. She refused to lose even a little. At this moment, Xue Xue, who had been trying to reduce its presence, suddenly jumped from the first floor to the door of Chu Luiyue's room on the second floor. It scratched the door with its claws. No. Its claws were so sharp that it left a few neat scratch marks on the door. Seeing Xue Xue like this, Rong Xiu suddenly felt that it was embarrassing. After all, it was a high-level magical beast. How could it lose its composure when faced with such a small matter? How embarrassing was it to scratch here and there? Xue Xue, what are you doing? Rong Xiu lowered his voice and asked. Xue Xue turned around to look at him. Its eyes were filled with grievance and indignation. Why else would she go to Wanling Mountain? Of course it was to hunt magical beasts. Didn't Chu Luiyue like it? Why did she go out to find other wild dogs? No wild magical beasts. What was she doing with it? This was absolutely unacceptable. Xue Xue couldn't care less about Rong Xiu anymore. It turned around and scratched the door again. However, Rong Xiu immediately understood from this look. Wait a minute. Tianlu Academy would indeed bring students to Wanling Mountain to train at this time every year. If he remembered correctly, they seemed to be forming their own teams. Then who was she in the same team as? A crack finally appeared in Rong Xiu's calm expression. Chu Luiyue had just entered Tianlu Academy, so she didn't know many people. The people she was most familiar with were probably the dozens of Shen masters. If she was in a team, she would be with these people. Could it be that fellow from the C family? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Web. Chapter 124. Wanling Mountain was a 2-day journey from the Imperial City. Tianlu Academy's teachers would bring the students who volunteered to go there for training. Some people wanted to hunt fiend beasts that they were satisfied with, while others wanted to use this rare opportunity to improve their skills. Fighting with fiend beasts could increase one's potential and unleash more power. Sometimes this could even help cultivators break through their own bottlenecks and advance to the next level. Thus, most of the students in the academy had signed up. Early in the morning, the students had already gathered at the first glimmer of light. The older students were fine, but most of the new students could not hide their excitement. I wonder if I can hunt a 4th-grade fiend beast during this fiend tide? Just you? Don't even think about it. Only the most talented and powerful people can hunt fiend beasts of that level. That might not be the case. Maybe I'll be lucky and encounter one. What's more, the people in our group aren't weak. If we join forces, there's a chance of success. I don't want to think too much. I just want to find a few powerful fiend beasts to fight with. Tisk, when you encounter a high-level fiend beast, you might not even have time to run. Everyone was discussing and teasing each other. They were obviously looking forward to this trip. Outside the lively crowd, a few people were exceptionally quiet. Why isn't Lu Yu here yet? It's almost time to leave. Mu Hongyu looked at the sky and was a little anxious. Yesterday she had specially told Chu Luiyue twice about today's departure time and that she could not be late. Now that everyone had arrived, why was she still nowhere to be seen? Is she delayed by something? A tall and skinny young man beside Mu Hongyu asked. His skin was very white and he looked very gentle. He spoke slower than the average person, but he sounded very gentle. This person was Liao Zhongshu. Mu Hongyu shook her head. What could be more important than the fiend tide now? Logically speaking, she shouldn't have forgotten. Chu Luiyue did not seem like an unreliable person. Do you know where she lives? Why don't we go look for her directly? Liao Zhongshu said placatingly. Mu Hongyu covered her face. You forgot that she's a mystic cultivator and lives in a different place from us. These days she had become much closer to Chu Luiyue, but she had never asked where Chu Luiyue lived. Liao Zhongshu fell silent for a moment. He had really neglected this. What's there to be troubled about? If we really can't do it, the 4 of us can form a team. We're short of one person. Could it be that we're not allowed to go? A burly, dark-skinned youth beside Liao Zhongshu said in a gruff voice. Sinhu, are you a tiger? Mu Hongyu rolled her eyes at him. Everyone else said there are 5 people, but there are only 4 of us. How much of a loss do we have to suffer? It's fine if you don't want it. But if it affects our entire team, Hongyu won't let you off, let alone me. Mu Hongyu suddenly patted him on the shoulder. Didn't you hear what Liwei said? Hurry up and go. Sinhu staggered from the pat, but he was not angry at all. Instead he grinned. Then I'll take the origin core first. When we encounter other magical beasts in the future, I'll be at the front to help you. As he spoke, he walked to the side of the corpse and cut it open with his saber. From the steel azure horse's head, he took out a green pearl the size of a longan. On it, 3 vein patterns could be clearly seen. Sinhu wiped off the blood on it, opened his mouth and swallowed it. A warm current flowed through his lungs, and the heart-wrenching pain instantly lessened. Sinhu's eyes lit up. It really works. Chu Liwei did not turn back. The origin cores of magical beasts all contain some poison, and the steel azure horse is no exception. Every hour after that, cut your thumb and let out some blood. Do this 3 times, and the poison in the origin core will naturally be expelled. It would have been better to use the 3 pure leaves, but there doesn't seem to be any here. Let's use this stupid method for now. Her tone was light, as if it was a small matter. However, Mu Hongyu and the others were dumbfounded by what they heard. Chu Liwei walked a few steps and realized that there was no movement behind her. She finally turned around, but saw that they were all looking at her strangely. What's wrong? Liwei, how do you know so much? Mu Hongyu asked hesitantly. Gu Mingfeng, who had been silent all this while, suddenly spoke. Have you forgotten that she passed all 3 exams to get into the academy? Of course that included Heaven Doctor. Actually, Mu Hongyu and the others could not be blamed for not remembering. On the day Chu Liwei had been admitted to the academy, she had immediately participated in the Mystic Master and Warrior midterm examinations. She had placed 2nd and 1st respectively. It was really too dazzling. Not many people had really paid attention to Heaven Doctor. Now that Gu Mingfeng mentioned it, the few of them snapped out of their daze. Damn. I really forgot. Sinhu smacked his head and gave Chu Liwei a thumbs up. I'm impressed. Chu Liwei, Sinhu, am really impressed by you now. Chu Liwei raised her brows slightly. It's just the superficial knowledge. It's nothing much. Let's continue walking in. All right. Mu Hongyu and the others responded in unison. Mu Hongyu had originally been the leader of their team, but unknowingly, they had already treated Chu Liwei as their backbone. It was as if she could inexplicably convince people just by standing there. Gu Mingfeng followed at the back and narrowed his eyes. Chu Liwei really only knew a little? The Iron Azure Horse was not considered common. Even if ordinary people had seen it, they might not know much about it. Chapter 128. Chu Liui's eyes darkened. He drew his sword from his waist and stabbed it forward. Poof! That bright and sharp sword accurately pierced the livid horse's neck. The livid horse let out a painful neigh, and its eyes became even crazier. It moved its body and continued to attack Chu Liwei without caring about anything else. Chu Liui's expression was cold as he flipped his wrist. The sword suddenly slashed horizontally and cut off the livid horse's neck. Plop! The livid horse's head fell to the ground with a dull thud. The wound that Chu Liwei cut was still bleeding. The livid horse's eyes were wide open, and it twitched twice before it stopped breathing. Chu Liwei put his sword away and looked at the corpse on the ground. He was deep in thought. She did not know this livid horse and she did not do anything overboard. Why did it react this way? Mu Hongyu and the rest were stunned for a while before they realized what had happened. Whoa, you're too fast. Mu Hongyu asked in a daze. The few of them had attacked the livid horse together, but they could not stop it. However, Chu Liwei killed it with just 1 slash. How strong must he be to do that? F***CK. You were still holding back when you were competing with Chu Xianmin the other day? Sinhu, who was lying on the ground, got up with much difficulty. He did not care about the blood on his face and body. He stared at Chu Liwei with his eyes wide open in disbelief. He had a taste of the livid horse's abilities when he fought it head-on earlier. Even someone as strong as him had suffered under the livid horse's hooves. If Mu Hongyu and the rest did not help him, he might not have been its match. However, Chu Liwei killed it so easily? Chu Liwei collected his thoughts, looked up at the few of them and shrugged. It wanted to kill me, so I naturally did not show it any mercy. As for the midterm assessment, didn't the teacher say not to go overboard? Sinhu stared at Chu Liwei with his eyes wide open. He could not help but curse softly. Chu Liwei raised his chin. You can have the Pearl of Essence. Sinhu's eyes widened. What do you mean? Are you looking down on me? You killed the livid horse, so its Pearl of Essence is naturally yours. I'm not a greedy person. Chu Liwei rubbed his eyebrows. Sinhu's personality was a little too straightforward. You were injured by it. If you don't recuperate, you'll need at least 10 days to half a month. If you take its origin pill and use your origin to heal, you'll recover faster. Sin Hu's words were stunned. Sin Hu's words, but he still doubtfully. Really? How do you know this? Chu Liwei could not be bothered with him. He turned around and walked away. A mere third-grade pearl of essence is nothing. It's fine if you don't want it. But if it affects our entire team, Hongyu will be the first to come after you. Mu Hongyu had an epiphany and suddenly patted his shoulder. Chapter 130. Sensing the danger, the Wolf King could only stop attacking Gu Mingfeng and turned to pounce on Chu Liwei. Chu Liui's sword slashed across its back and the Wolf King's fur stood on end. It was as hard as steel needles. This sword strike only left an extremely shallow bloodstain on the surface. Chu Liuei pursed her lips tightly. Although the king of the Crimson Wind Wolves was only a third-grade magical beast, its strength was comparable to a fourth-grade magical beast. The most troublesome part was its fur. However, Chu Liui's attack had thoroughly enraged the Wolf King. After exchanging blows with Chu Liuei, it landed on the ground not far away and was filled with cold murderous intent. Awu, the Wolf King raised its head and howled, then charged toward Chu Liuei again. Chu Liuei raised her sword and the man and beast clashed. The Wolf King bit the sword directly. Crack. The long sword broke. In Chu Liui's hand, there was only a broken sword left. The Wolf King followed closely. It went straight for Chu Liui's neck. Gu Mingfeng's heart suddenly felt empty when he saw this scene. However, Chu Liuei did not retreat. Instead, she went forward and stabbed the remaining half of the sword into the Wolf King's mouth. The Wolf King let out a howl. The next moment, it seemed to have gone berserk and bit the broken sword into pieces. Blood splattered everywhere. Chu Liuei felt a few drops of warm liquid on her face. The thick stench of blood was nauseating. She quickly let go of the sword hilt and retreated. The Wolf King went forward again. This time its speed was even faster than before. Chu Liuei could not dodge in time. When she looked up, she could already see the Wolf King's sharp teeth. She tilted her head and narrowly avoided the Wolf King's attack. The next moment, a cold murderous intent flashed in her eyes. She bent her knee and raised her leg, then kicked the Wolf King in the stomach. To an ordinary person, this kick might be an extremely serious attack. However, to the Wolf King, whose physical strength was tyrannical, it was nothing. The Wolf King's movement only paused for a moment before it continued to attack. Its sharp claws went for the heart. Once it was hit, it would definitely die. Gu Mingfeng, who had just gotten up with difficulty, saw this scene and his heart was in his mouth. His pupils constricted. At this moment, a ray of light suddenly flashed. The Wolf King only saw a flash in front of its eyes, then felt a cold touch on its front leg. Its actions finally stopped, but it saw Chu Liuei holding a dagger in front of her chest. Its front claws, which had attacked Chu Liuei, had been chopped off. A moment later, an intense pain. Taking advantage of this short period of time, Chu Liuei kicked it out again. The Wolf King lost its front paws and fell heavily to the ground heavily. With dust and blood all over his body, he looked like he was in a sorry state. Ming, Liuei, hurry. We can't hold on any longer. Mu Hongyu suddenly shouted. Chu Liuei glanced sideways and saw that the three of them had already fallen into the pack of wolves. Their figures were almost buried in the wolves. Without hesitation, she quickly went forward and leaped. Her hand rose and the knife fell. The knife pierced through the Wolf King's head. A bloody hole instantly appeared in the Wolf King's head. Its eyeballs protruded and its flesh and blood rolled. It wanted to struggle to get up, but Gu Mingfeng immediately went forward and added another stab to the wound. It twitched a few times before it went completely silent. The wolf pack immediately sensed the Wolf King's death and it was followed by chaos. Not long after, the pack of wolves that had been attacking Mu Hongyu and the other two fled in all directions, disappearing into the dark forest without a trace. The surroundings finally quieted down again. Only the bloodstains on the ground and the Wolf King's corpse proved what had happened here. Chu Liuei heaved a sigh of relief after confirming that the crisis was over. She took 2 steps back and leaned against a tree, panting heavily. Her current ability was not bad compared to Chu Xinmin's, but it was still very difficult for her to fight with a fiend of the Red Wolf King's level. The short exchange had almost depleted her energy. If she had not used the dagger to block the Wolf King's fatal attack, she might have been. Chu Liuei lowered her head and looked at the dagger in her hand. The thin and sharp dagger had clear moonlight flowing on it, and there was not a trace of blood. However, she had already experienced its power earlier. This time she really had to thank Rongxiu. If it were her previous dagger, she definitely would not have been able to kill the Wolf King so easily. Unknowingly, Rong Xiu had saved her again. Chu Liyue looked at the dagger in a daze. Liu, are you okay? Mu Hongyu rushed over and hurriedly sized up Chu Liyue. Chu Liyue snapped out of her daze and shook her head. I'm fine. Aya? Your arm is cut. Mu Hongyu wanted to heave a sigh of relief, but she saw that Chu Liyue's right arm had a few cuts. Chu Liyue glanced at it and did not seem to care. I was accidentally scratched by that beast just now. It's nothing. You guys were surrounded by the wolves. How are you? Mu Hongyu was relieved when she saw her calm expression and confident tone. Her expression darkened when she heard Chu Liyue's question. I'm fine. It's just that Liao Zhongshu was seriously injured when he tried to protect me and Xinhu. Chu Liyue looked up and saw Liao Zhongshu sitting on the ground with Xinhu supporting him. His face was covered in blood and there was a shocking wound on his thigh. It seemed that a piece of flesh had been bitten off. She frowned and walked over. How are you? Liao Zhongshu's face was extremely pale, without a trace of blood. I'm fine. How can you be fine? Xinhu was anxious and his eyes were filled with frustration. It's all my fault. The wolves pounced on me just now and I couldn't hold them back. Zhongshu tried to help me. Liao Zhongshu shook his head and said weakly, You were injured. It's normal that you couldn't hold them back. You don't have to blame yourself. We're on the same team, aren't we? His voice became softer and softer, and he looked like he would faint at any moment. Mu Hongyu was so anxious that her eyes turned red. Liu, what should we do? You're a celestial physician. Do you have any ideas? Chu Liyue bent down and carefully checked his injuries. She thought for a moment and shook her head. He's too badly injured. Even you can't do anything? Mu Hongyu's eyes became hot. She quickly turned her head and wiped the corners of her eyes. Among them, Liu was the most capable. Even she said that she couldn't do it. The corners of Liao Zhongshu's mouth twitched and he forced a smile. However, his pale face made him even more distressing. I know my own body. I'll help you stop the bleeding first. Xinhu pulled Liao Zhongshu's signal tube and asked the teacher to take him away. He can't continue in this situation. Wanling Mountain's terrain was steep. After the arrival of the magical beasts, it would only become more dangerous. Liao Zhongshu had to go back and recuperate. They looked at each other and fell silent. Xinhu lowered his head and finally took out Liao Zhongshu's signal tube. He pulled it. Poof. A firework suddenly rose into the sky. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 131. Now that things had come to this, everyone decided to rest where they were. Mu Hongyu went to start a fire, and the group sat around it, waiting for their teacher's arrival. Chu Liyue found some herbs nearby and bandaged Liao Zhongshu's wound, temporarily stopping the bleeding. The others were more or less injured, so she distributed the herbs and let them deal with it themselves. Finally, she applied the remaining herbs to her arm. The pain that had just subsided was stimulated by the herbs, causing her to frown. Someone walked over. Chu Liyue looked up and saw Gu Mingfeng. Just now. Thank you. The flames leaped and shone on Gu Mingfeng's face, making his expression look even more obscure and unclear. Chu Liyue shook her head. It's not worth mentioning. That Wolf King is powerful. You and I are no match for it alone. We can only win if we work together. Fortunately, we were lucky. Gu Mingfeng looked at her, many thoughts flashing through his mind. Chu Luiyue said it casually, but in that life-and-death struggle, the slightest carelessness could have cost them their lives. But Chu Luiyue didn't hesitate at all. Especially, when he thought he was going to die under the Wolf King's fangs. If not for Chu Luiyue's timely appearance, he would be worse than Liao Zhongshu. She saved his life. But she didn't seem to care. Was there really such a selfless person in this world? Chu Luiyue sensed that Gu Mingfeng hadn't left, so she looked up at him and saw the surging emotions in his eyes. Gu Mingfeng frowned and immediately looked away. Chu Luiyue smiled inwardly. She had seen too many scheming people in her previous life. Seeing that Chu Luiyue and the others were injured, through Gu Mingfeng's thoughts at a glance and asked, perhaps because of his background, he was a little gloomy and sensitive, and he subconsciously distrusted everyone. His heart skipped a beat. Even though they were in the same team, Teacher Wen Yan Chu Luiyue believed that Gu Mingfeng had never cared about their lives. And the others also the main reason he was willing to deal with the Wolf King was because he wanted to save his own life. And 2 were lightly injured. I saved you out of convenience. I received their distress signal 2 hours ago. In that kind of situation, if it was anyone else, I would have taken action. Were also shocked. Chu Luiyue said indifferently. Mr. Wen Yan nodded solemnly. Only then did she realize that her thoughts had been seen through by Cloud's urge leopards. He frowned and felt a little uncomfortable. Leopards were third-tier magical around beasts, and planned to leave. And they were powerful. After taking a step forward, he stopped. It was no wonder Lu Fian and the others were in such a miserable state. After he finished speaking, they all left and withdrew from and sat down. Yes. He closed his eyes and adjusted his breathing. And no longer had the strength to fight. At him thoughtfully. The remaining his impression of him improved a little. Are also trembling much better than his half-sister, Gu Mingzhi. As Wen Yan spoke, after waiting for about an hour, Teacher Wen Yan, who was examining him carefully, arrived. He heaved a sigh of relief. He looked travel-worn and even though they are severely injured on his body, it's fortunate that we had managed to save them in time. It's not too late to return now. Liao Zhongshu knew that he would only be a burden to everyone if he stayed. Then I'll have to trouble Teacher Wen Yan. Wen Yan sighed. Zhongshu, you're very talented. You could have hunted a suitable magical beast this time. Unfortunately, there was no need to think about it now. Liao Zhongshu's pale lips twitched as he smiled weakly. Teacher Wen Yan, don't worry. I know that my life is more important. It's good that you can think this way. When you recover, there will be more opportunities. It's not worth it for a moment of anger. Wen Yan was relieved as he looked at Chu Luiyue and the others. Then what about the 4 of you? Xin Hu said in a rough voice. Of course we have to continue. It would be too cowardly if they retreated just like that. Liao Zhongshu almost lost his life to help them resist the wolf pack. If they also retreated, what was the point? Are you sure? Teacher Wen Yan sighed. Wanling Mountain is very strange this time. Some magical beasts that were originally active in the inner area have appeared in the outer area. They are very aggressive. I contacted the other teachers just now and many teams have encountered the same situation. If we continue to go deeper, I'm afraid it will be dangerous. Xin Hu was stunned. He scratched his head and instinctively looked at Chu Luiyue. Mu Hongyu and Gu Mingfeng also looked over at the same time. Liu, what do you think? Mu Hongyu asked. Teacher Wen Yan was a little surprised. Wasn't the leader of their team Mu Hongyu? Why did it seem like Chu Luiyue was the backbone now? Chu Luiyue thought for a moment and calmly glanced at them. I choose to continue. A better reading experience mobile users comes from Love Browse and read. Chapter 132. Okay, let's continue. Mu Hongyu seemed to have taken
Teacher
a
has
calming
been
pill.
overthinking things.
She clenched her fists.
How could one
and her
grow if
hesitant
they were afraid
expression
of
became
everything?
firm. Then I'll
Sinhu
send
nodded.
Zhongshu out first.
Let's continue.
You guys be careful.
We'll follow you.
If anything
Although
goes wrong,
Gu Mingfeng
immediately
didn't
ask
say
for
anything.
anything. He nodded in
Chu
agreement.
Luiyue and the others
Teacher
nodded.
Wenyan stared
Teacher,
blankly.
don't worry. This
After
team.
Teacher
Was
Wenyan
Chu
left
Luiyue
with
the
Liao
one in
Zhongshu,
charge?
the few
She
of them
said to
decided
continue,
to take turns
but the
to
others
rest.
didn't have any
The first one was
objections.
Chu Luiyue.
They seemed to be
She
more
was considered
confident
to
than
be the
before.
one with the lighter
They had
injuries
only been
among
in
them,
Wanling Mountain
so she let
for a
the
day.
others rest and
What
recover
happened to
their
them?
vitality first.
Liu, are you sure?
The surroundings
Mr.
fell
Wenyan
silent
hesitated
again.
for a
Chu
while and
Luiyue
tried
sat
to dissuade
cross-legged
them.
and adjusted her
Wanling
breathing.
Mountain is different
The
from
scene
before.
of her battle with
It's
the
much
Wolf
more
King today
dangerous.
kept replaying
Even
in
if
her
you
mind.
really want to hunt
This
magical
body was
beasts,
still too weak.
I'm afraid now
When
is
she
not the
returned,
best time.
she should consider
Since
improving
we're
her
already
physical
here,
strength.
there's no reason to
Chu
retreat.
Luiyue felt a weight
Chu
on her
Luiyue's
shoulder.
tone was very
She
light,
turned her head
but
and
it was
saw a
steady and
furry
had
red
the power to
dumpling
make
squatting
others
on
feel
top
at
of her.
ease.
You're quite
Mr.
smart.
Wenyan, you can bring
You ran
Liao
quickly
Zhongshu
when you
back.
encountered
I
danger
know
and
what
came
I'm
back
doing
when it
and
was
won't
over.
risk my life.
Chu Luiyue
If we go
poked
back
it
now,
lightly.
we'll be
The
unwilling.
blood ferret's
Mr.
fluffy tail
Wenyan was
moved,
anxious,
revealing a pair
Liu,
of
I know
round
that the
eyes
few
that were
of you
full
aren't
of
flattering,
flattery, and you all have pride in your hearts.
Chu Luiyue
But
raised
now
her
you're all
eyebrows
injured.
and looked at it.
Look at the mess.
The blood ferret
Do you think
moved
I don't know
closer
how
and
dangerous
carefully
it was?
extended its two
You,
claws to bow.
as he spoke,
It
he
looked
suddenly
wronged
saw
and
the
worried,
carcass
and
of a
tears
fiend
quickly
lying not
gathered
far
in its
away.
eyes.
His
It
voice
was as if
stopped
it would
abruptly.
cry if Chu Luiyue
That
was
was
a little more
a
strict.
red wolf?
She couldn't
You were
blame it
attacked
for
by a
looking
red
like
wolf?
this. Chu
He
Luiyue
came in a
rubbed her
hurry, so
forehead.
he didn't see the
There was a
carcass
reason
of the
why
red
blood
wolf.
ferrets were known as the
Hongyu still
weakest
had
third-rank
lingering
demonic
fears.
beast.
Mr.
It didn't
Wenyan,
have
that's
any
the
other
carcass of the
abilities,
red
but
wolf
its
king.
escaping speed
We
was
were attacked by a
top-notch.
pack of red
She didn't
wolves
really
just
mean
now.
to blame it. This
Was she
sentence made
counting on
Teacher
this little
Wenyan
thing
so
to help
shocked
them
that he
defeat
was
the Red
speechless.
Summit wolves?
He stepped forward
Forget
and
it.
took a closer
As
look.
long as you're happy.
It was indeed the wolf
Chu
king.
Luiyue tapped its
Although
head.
it was covered in dust
Realizing
and
that
blood,
Chu Luiyue
its
wasn't
pierced head
really
was
angry,
obvious.
the little thing relaxed.
You killed it?
It intimately
Liu
moved
and
forward
Mingfeng
and
killed
rubbed
it
its head
together.
against her face.
Mu Hongyu
Chu
sighed.
Yue's
The
lips
three of
curved
us were in
slightly.
charge of stopping
Nothing
the wolf
happened
pack.
that night.
Zhongshu
Early
was
the next
seriously
morning,
injured
they
because
set
he
off
tried
again
to
and
save
headed
me
into
and
Wan
Sinhu.
Spirit Mountain.
Teacher Wenyan
The
opened his
forest was
mouth,
lush,
but
and
he
the deeper
couldn't
they
say
went,
anything.
the quieter it
Only
was.
his heart was filled
However,
with shock.
such an environment
Red
made
Peak
them more
wolves
vigilant.
and the wolf
This
king.
place seems a little
Yet
strange.
the few of them had actually
Mu
managed
Hongyu
to
looked
withstand
around
such
and
a
muttered
battle.
softly.
Moreover,
Chu Luiyue,
other
who
than
was
Liao
walking in
Zhongshu,
front,
the other
suddenly
four seemed
stopped.
to have only suffered
others
some
also
superficial
stopped.
wounds.
Liu, is there
Although
a
he
problem?
knew that these people
Mu
had good
Hongyu
rankings
asked.
in the midterm
After what
assessment
happened the
and could
day
be
before,
considered
they
a
were
strong
very
alliance,
confident in Chu
he did
Luiyue.
not expect them
Chu
to be able
Luiyue
to reach
frowned
this
slightly.
step.
He was
Let's
silent
go
for a
back.
long time.
Go back?
Chu Luiyue
But
looked
we
at
just
the
arrived
dancing
here.
flames in front
They
of
were
him
very
and said
puzzled,
softly,
but when they saw
"Don't
Chu
worry,
Luiyue's serious
Teacher Wenyan,
expression,
I know you're
they
worried
didn't say
about us.
anything else.
But the path of
However,
cultivation
just as
had
they
always
turned
been like
around and
this.
walked a few steps,
If one was
a
blindly
woman
greedy
suddenly
for
screamed
comfort,
behind them.
then one would never be able to become a true
Digression.
expert.
Yesterday,
think?
when I was writing, I
Wenyan
fell
was
asleep while
shocked
sitting
and
down.
looked at Chu Luiyue
Later,
with a
it will drop
complicated
at 5
expression.
p.m. Please check your mobile phone users. A better reading experience comes from Love Network.
Chapter 133. Although the voice was sharp, Chu Luiyue was very familiar with it. No wonder she felt that it was familiar. Guming's eyebrows twitched slightly, wasn't it, but he did not say anything. Her expression became even more unsightly. Why does it sound so familiar? It's disgusting enough to meet Gu wanted to look back, but I didn't expect there to be another one. Let's go. Sinhu scolded
Otherwise,
loudly,
we'll be the ones crying for help.
Gu Mingzhu was
startled
startled by his thunderous followed him, but she felt
few
even
of them
more
quickly
disgusted.
retreated back the way they
Martial
came,
artists were so
but the
vulgar.
screams did not stop.
Birds of a feather
They were
flocked
even
together.
getting closer.
Each of these
Help.
people was more annoying
The screams
than the
were
last.
accompanied by
Chu
messy
Luiyue turned
footsteps.
around and looked
It
at
was
Gu
obvious
Mingzhu
that
coldly.
someone was running for their
We're
life.
the unlucky ones to
Gu
have met
Mingzhu
you.
wanted to hunt
Gu
the
Mingzhu
satisfactory
shuddered under
fiend
her
in one
gaze.
spirit mountain.
What do you
this
mean
time.
by that? Her
You
family
clearly
had
heard my
suggested
call
that they
for
help
help,
her choose
but
one,
you pretended
but she
not
was
to hear
arrogant
it.
and refused
You're
to
the
let
ones
others
who
help her.
I heard it.
She wanted to hunt
Chu
by
Luiyue
herself.
interrupted her and
Thus,
spoke
she had been
bluntly.
looking forward to this
I
fiend
just don't
tide
want to
for a
help
long
you.
time.
Do you have a
However,
problem with
she
that?
did not expect to
Gu
be in
Mingzhu
danger
was so
after
angry
just
that
one
her
day
face
in one
turned
spirit
pale.
mountain.
She ran forward
Chu
in a
Luiyue.
panic.
Even
Her
if you
heart
don't
was
like
beating
me
so
so
violently
violently
that
that
it
it
almost
almost jumped out of
How
her
can you
mouth.
leave me in the lurch?
Actually, she had
You're
used
too
up all
selfish.
her energy,
Chu
but she did
Luiyue
not
sneered.
dare to stop.
We don't have
She
any
could only keep
relationship
running
with you.
forward.
Why should
She
we
did
help
not
you?
even dare to
You're
look
too
back.
thick-skinned.
In a blur,
on the
she
other
seemed
hand,
to see
brought
a
us
few
a lot of
figures in the
trouble.
distance.
I'll remember
Although
this.
she could not see
Gu
their
Mingzhu
faces
immediately
clearly,
felt
they were
guilty.
wearing
You,
Tianlu
what
Academy's
nonsense are you
uniform.
talking about?
She was elated
What
and
trouble did
quickly
I
called
bring
for
you?
help.
However,
However,
those people
she
did not
stuttered
come
for
over.
a long time, but
After
she
hearing
couldn't
her
say
call
anything.
for help, they
Mu
started to
Hongyu
retreat.
and the others also
Gu
felt
Mingzhu
uneasy
became
when they
anxious
saw her
and
like
used
this.
the last of her energy to
A
chase
roar
after them.
suddenly came from the
Help.
forest.
I'm also a
Even the
student of
ground seemed
Tianlu
to
Academy.
tremble.
You guys
Bang,
help me.
bang.
It was
Sinhu
as
could
if
not help
something
but
heavy
look
had
back
fallen
when he
to
heard
the
this
ground.
voice.
It was
His
so
eyes
heavy that it made
immediately
people
widened
panic
when he saw what was
The
on
few
the
of them
screen.
turned their heads to
Gu
look,
Mingzhu,
only to see a
Sinhu
huge
knew Gu
figure
Mingzhu,
approaching them
but
from
Gu
the
Mingzhu
forest
did
in
not
front
know
of
him.
them.
Wherever
After
it
all,
passed,
she had always
the thick
looked down
trees
on
were
martial
easily
artists.
deduced.
Thus,
Finally,
other than the
a
most
huge
famous
brown
ones,
bear
she
the
had never
size of
looked
a
at
small
anyone
mountain
else.
appeared in front
When
of
she
them.
heard that
Its
Sinhu
entire body
recognized
was
her, she
brownish
was
red.
elated. Only
On
its
Gu
neck was
Mingzhu,
golden,
if
and
you
it
help
shone
me, I'll thank you
dazzlingly under the
properly when I
sunlight.
get back.
The most
Chu
frightening thing
Luiyue
was the
suddenly
terrifying
stopped and
aura
looked in
coming
front
from
of
its
her with a
body.
serious expression.
Sinhu's jaw dropped.
Mu Hongyu and the others
This is
sensed
a
that something was
fourth-grade
wrong
golden
and
mane
stopped
bear.
as well.
Gu
Only
Mingfeng
then did Gu
immediately
Mingzhu
look at them
reacted.
carefully. He looked
Other
at
than
Gu
Sinhu
Mingzhu
and
and
the
the
other
other
three
three
had their
did
backs
you
facing
provoke
her.
it?
However,
Gu
this
Mingzhu
back
avoided
view
his
was very
gaze and
familiar.
forced herself to
She
say,
stared at him for a while.
I just thought that
then
the
frowned
golden
and
mane
asked
bear was
suspiciously,
powerful and had a
Gu
high
Mingfeng?
level, so I wanted to
Gu
give it a
Mingfeng
try. Turned his head
Idiot.
and looked at her
Mu
expressionlessly.
Hongyu could not wait to
Gu
give Gu
Mingzhu showed
Mingzhu
a
two
look of
tight
disgust.
slaps.
Who
It
do you
really
think
is
you
you.
are? I'm
You
really
even dared
unlucky
to
to have
provoke a
met you
golden
today.
mane bear.
His
Where are
tone
the
and
rest of your
expression
team?
didn't seem like he
Gu
had seen a
Mingzhu's
family
face
at all.
instantly turned
Instead,
pale.
it seemed like
This
he had seen
strange
something
silence
dirty.
immediately
Gu
made them
Mingfeng's
understand
eyes
what had
flashed
happened.
with coldness. They're all dead.
Liu, is there a problem?
Sinhu asked in
Mu
shock.
Hongyu asked in a
No,
low
no.
voice.
Two of them
Hearing
got
this
separated
name,
from me.
Gu Mingzhu's eyes
I don't know where
widened
they
in
went.
shock.
Gu Mingzhu tried to explain herself, but her voice sounded even more
Gu
guilty.
Mingzhu's team was
That
made
meant
up
two
of
of them
Shen
were
masters.
This kind of loss was tragic. So, after killing two Shen masters, you want to drag us down with you? Chu Liyue's voice was cold. Gu Mingzhu's lips moved and she turned her head away. You guys came here on your own accord. I didn't force you guys to come. Anyway, we're all in the same boat now. None of us can escape. You guys can do whatever you want. Mu Hongyu was stunned by how shameless Gu Mingzhu was, but she was still clear-headed. She knew that this wasn't the time to argue with Gu Mingzhu. Lu Yu, this golden mane bear is 4th grade. Can we win if we work together? Chu Liyue was so angry that he laughed. Golden mane bears are extremely strong and powerful. It's not easy to deal with them. More importantly, it's a female bear. Everyone was shocked. You mean? Chu Liyue stepped forward and stared at her. What did you do? Why is this female bear chasing after you like this? Gu Mingzhu had no choice but to speak in frustration. I just wanted to take the golden mane bear cub away while it was out looking for food. I was discovered as soon as I came out. I didn't take the golden mane bear cub with me. Adult golden mane bears weren't easy to tame. Newborn golden mane bears were the easiest to tame, so she took the risk. The others agreed as well. They're all going together. You can't blame me for all of their deaths. She just didn't expect to be discovered. Chu Liyue wanted to strangle her to death. Do you know that golden mane bears are extremely protective? If you touch its cub, it will chase after you until it's dead. It doesn't matter if you die, but can you afford to implicate us? Digression. Are you guys the devil if there are more chapters today? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network.